Hi, welcome. Today we're having a little interview with our Director of Heritage Programs with the Mount Royal Commemorative Services, which is our big branch company, Myriam Cloutier. Myriam, what is it that it does, Director of Heritage Program at the Mount Royal Cemetery?
Hi, I spend most of my time at Mount Royal Cemetery, giving guided tours of the place. I'm in charge of everything that pertains to history. So I preserve and promote all the natural and historical attributes of the property. So I handle some restoration projects. I've prepared some pamphlets that people can use to discover the place. So those are the kinds of things that I do.
Wow, very cool, very nice. And today you're gonna talk to us a little bit about, well, our new place, which is Belvedere Cemetery and Funeral Home that opened only 5, almost 6 years ago now. So the link between the Mount Royal Cemetery and Senneville and history, what is all that, and what are the links between us and the old and the new?
There are many people that are buried in the Mount Royal Cemetery that had summer residences in Senneville. That's what I discovered when I started doing some research when the Belvedere complex was built in 2015. So before I show you those people, I have a couple of slides to show you, so you know, so people see what Mount Royal Cemetery looks like. So this is a very old picture of our main gates, which are located at the main entrance on the Outremont side of the mountain. So we have two entrances. So that entrance, that north entrance that we still have, that was restored a few years ago. And we also have a south entrance close to Mount Royal Park. So Mount Royal Cemetery is surrounded by 3 other cemeteries, Notre-Dame-des-Neiges Cemetery plus 2 other Jewish cemeteries. And there's also Mount Royal Park that is a neighbor of the Mount Royal Cemetery. The cemetery was founded in 1852. At first, it was just 50 acres, and it was expanded over time. It's now 165 acres. More than 200,000 people are buried in the Mount Royal Cemetery, and everybody's buried in perpetuity, which means that we don't resell graves or lots. Once it belongs to a family, they own the burial rights in perpetuity. So the historical sections of the cemetery have been well preserved. So when you take walks in those old sections of the cemetery, you see many different types of monuments. And the lots were a lot bigger then, so the monuments were bigger too. So in those historical sections, we have many obelisks and tall structures. And since the cemetery was established on Mount Royal, the topography of the site is very interesting. So in many areas of the cemetery, you can have beautiful views of the city. At first, Mount Royal Cemetery was just a small cemetery offering only services for burials. And then in 1901, on the cemetery property was built the first crematorium in Canada. So you have a picture right here of what the original building looked like in 1901. And that building was expanded many times. And in 1998, it became a funeral complex. So it's since 1998 that we call this building the Mount Royal Funeral Complex. In 1910, the Mount Royal Cemetery Company decided to buy new property in the east end of Montreal in Pointe-aux-Trembles. They founded a cemetery, which they named Hawthorndale Cemetery. And in 1995, they built a funeral complex on site, which is called the Complexe Funéraire des Trembles. And very recently, in 2015, the property of Senneville was established. So the Belvedere Cemetery and Funeral Complex were established. So it's around 2015 that I started doing some research to find out that there were many links that we could do between the history of some of the historic people buried in the cemetery and the people that used to live in Senneville. So I know about those people because I often talk about them in the historical walking tours that I do every summer. Those tours are offered free of charge. We always schedule them many months in advance, so it's usually on the company's website for dates. So those tours usually have themes. So we talk about, on one day we can talk about politicians, on another day it can be about artists buried in the cemetery. So we try to vary the themes every year. So the participants that wish to come back don't always hear the same stories. So these are the monuments of those men that lived in Senneville. The beautiful Celtic cross on the left here is for Sir Edward Clouston, who was the general manager of the Bank of Montreal. The next one on the right, that beautiful cross, is Sir Vincent Meredith, who also had a great career with the Bank of Montreal. And this one on the right is Richard Angus, who was president of the Canadian Pacific Railways for many years. And the Angus shops in Eastern Montreal were named after him. And this monument here with the beautiful flowers in front is for Charles Meredith. He was the brother of Sir Vincent Meredith. And he was a broker. He owned a brokerage firm, and he was the president of the Montreal Stock Exchange for many years. And those two people here are two brothers, Edward and William Maxwell, and they were famous architects. And what's very interesting when you read about those people that built a summer residences in Senneville is that the architect that they had hired previously downtown to build their house or their businesses or their train stations in the case of the CP, those architects were often asked to do the summer residences. And the Maxwell brothers were very popular. They were very talented. Many houses in the Golden Square Mile were built by them. So they have contributed to some residences in Senneville. The most famous resident of Senneville was, of course, the Prime Minister, Sir John Abbott, who decided to buy property in Senneville in 1865. It was a summer residence where he could cultivate orchids. He loved orchids. He had cows. And he was a great fisherman, so he could go on the Lac des Deux Montagnes to fish when he had the time, because he was a very busy man. Apart from being active in federal politics, he was also mayor of Montreal from 1887 to 1889. that's why he has that necklace on the picture. The medallion that you see there are the armories of Montreal.
Mm.
And I've seen other mayors of Montreal with the same necklace. So so he was Prime Minister of Canada from 1891 to 1892, so for 17 months. Prior to that, he was Mayor of Montreal, and he was also a senator for the Dominion for a few years. And apart from that, he was a renowned lawyer in the city. He specialized in the corporate law, and he had some very important clients, such as the Canadian Pacific, the Bank of Montreal, all those big businesses in Montreal. He was helping them sign their contracts and making deals with other companies. He's buried in the cemetery with other members of the Abbott family, and he was married to Mary Bethune, and right beside the Abbott lot is a very big lot for the Bethune family. Um, Sir John Abbott had 8 children with Mary Bethune, and I guess some of them got used to visiting their father in Senneville. So for many, many years, they were members of the Abbott family that lived in Senneville. These are the pictures of Sir John Abbott's residences. So the photograph on the left is his house that was on Sherbrooke Street, close to Stanley Street. And this one on the right was his summer residence in Senneville, which he called Boisbriand. And that house still exists today. You have a picture here of what it looks like now. So as opposed to other houses that no longer exist on Senneville Road, the Abbott family's house is still there. John Abbott College is named after Sir John Abbott, and as you know, it's located very close to Senneville. So I'm sure it's not a coincidence. I just can't tell you how come it became, that name was chosen, but for sure there's no coincidence. It's because he liked living in that area. And that college was founded at the beginning of the 1970s. So in recent weeks, we've heard about Sir John Abbott because he was the great-grandfather of Christopher Plummer, that great actor who died in a few weeks ago. So John Abbott had 8 children. His youngest son had a daughter, and that daughter was the mother of Christopher Plummer. Her name was Isabella, and she is now buried in the Mount Royal Cemetery with many other members of the Abbott family. Christopher Plummer was born in Toronto, and shortly after he was born, his parents were divorced. So his mother brought him to Senneville, and that's where he was raised with other members of the Abbott family. And throughout his life, he often talked about Montreal. He went to school in Montreal. He trained as an actor in Montreal. He was part of the Montreal Repertory Theater, which used to organize plays in Montreal. And then he went to Ottawa for a few contracts. And it's in the 1950s that he made his debuts on Broadway. And I guess his most famous contract was in the 1960s when he became Captain Von Trapp in the
The Sound of Music.
The Sound of Music. Thank you. In French, it was called La Mélodie du Bonheur.
That's right.
Still today, every Christmas, we see that movie on TV. So I've heard Christopher Plummer talk about Sir John Abbott. So he knew where he came from, and he knew a lot about his great-grandfather. So there has been a few interviews where he mentioned him. So apart from the Abbott family and from all the other monuments and people that I showed you, there are quite a few interesting people buried in the Montreal Cemetery. So for those who are interested to know more about who is buried there, we have free brochures that you can obtain if you come to the cemetery office. But you can also call us and we will mail you some copies if you wish. So we have a brochure on the historical people, but we also have a brochure on the 100 tree species that you can see in the cemetery. So we have some rare trees that are quite interesting. So by using this brochure, you can know where they are located on the property. And we also have a book if you want to know everything about the Montreal Cemetery. It's a book that was written by a history professor from McGill University in 2003. It's also available at the cemetery office. And we have an app. It's a free app that you can download, which gives you a guided tour of Montreal Cemetery. So it takes you to 70 points of interest where you can learn about some interesting facts of the cemetery. So this is what I wanted to tell you today. I hope it's been informative.
That is so cool, Myriam. Thank you so much for all this. This is so interesting. I mean, I learned so much. I've been with the company for quite a long time without dating myself, but like so much I didn't know, and all the intricacies and how the people that live in Montreal and have a history with Senneville, and now we're here as well. It's so great to see all this connected. Thank you so much. That was really fun. I hope we do
You're
this
welcome.
again.
Okay, bye.
Thank you. Bye.